نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. One of the things that we've tried to do over the days that we've been here so far, and inshallah we'll plan to do over the days that remain, is to impart what ilm that I've had the good fortune of having access to over my lifespan. It's been a while. And to share that with others in order for, firstly, for me to benefit, obviously. It's always about me, isn't it? And then secondly, for those who are listening to also benefit from that as well. What does knowledge do? You know, we find that knowledge is such a unique trait, a unique quality that Allah SWT has bestowed upon humans to be able to understand something and progress. So whenever we seek knowledge, like we've had opportunity, for example, in the verses of the Quran, we've come across all sorts of things. You know, unique things. We've been talking about people of the past and how they behaved. We've also been talking about the trials and tribulations that the Anbiya faced, and also the questions that they raised with regards to life after death. We've also talked about how talaq occurs between husband and wife. And as a consequence, we've talked about the rights and responsibilities that people have. So whenever the ulama speak and they say the Quran is a book of guidance, that is what they're referring to. That is what they are referring to. That this is not, it's not going to help you sort out some kind of mathematical equation at work or something. It's not going to help you to solve some kind of contractual building thing that you're making or anything like that. But what it will do is it will guide you through life. Its purpose is to guide you through life in order to get you to succeed in the hereafter. That's its purpose. It's a message that Allah SWT sent directly from Him to every single human in order for them to reflect and ponder and move forward. But it has multi-purposes. It has multi-purposes. We cannot be dismissive and say, well, if I don't understand it, what's the point in reciting it? If I don't understand it, what is the point in reciting it? There is a ajr in reciting it. There is an effect for those of us who, when we go and have a shower and we apply the shower gel, we may not understand about surface tension. We may not understand about what a surfactant is and what a micelle is and how the greasy layer on our body is removed by the soap. We don't understand the chemistry behind it, but we know it works. You come out of the shower smelling better than when you went in. The grime has gone, the grease has gone, the oiliness in the hair and the beard has gone. So in the same way, when we recite the Quran, we may not understand fully how it's cleansing us. Like we don't understand the chemistry of the shower gel. But in this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words are cleansing our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words are purifying us. They're putting us into a better position. What's the purpose of purification? Well, two things are the purpose of purification, at least anyway. One is you don't know when that time comes when you die, so you want to be in the best potential position. And secondly, what it does, it makes those black marks which are coming onto the heart, removing them as we discussed a few days back, and cleansing us in that process. But like that person who raises the objection and says, well, what is the point in reciting the Quran if I don't understand it? What is the point in attending the Taraweeh if I don't understand the Imam Sahib, what he's reciting? So let's twist that around. Well, do something about it then. Do something about it. Learn. But not at the expense of that ritual act. Because the ritual act has its purpose. And it's not about the or, it's about the and. So it's not about, should I pray Taraweeh without understanding what the Quran is meaning to me, or should I dedicate that 1 hour and reflect over the Quran? Isn't that better for me to spend that 1 hour reflecting over the Quran with a translation than me standing and following the Imam when I don't understand him? This tells me this person doesn't understand what the Quran is doing. Because when he's doing the ritual acts of worship, he's being purified. And so that's affecting his heart. And when he's understanding the Quran, it's affecting his mind. So they're two different things. The doctor may give you antibiotics in order to get rid of an infection, but he may also give you paracetamol in order to bring your fever down. So you don't say, well, why am I taking two for? So I'm just going to take the antibiotics. I'm going to leave the paracetamol, but then you're going to stay with the fever. Or you might say, I'll take the paracetamol, I'm not going to take the antibiotics, but then you're going to remain with the infection. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that these are the commandments, you need to pray your taraweeh, as we know from Sunnah Muakkada, you need to pray your fard salah, you need to do this, and to us it's very ritualistic, like making wudu, it's ritualistic. We're just going through the actions, but its purpose is taking place. So rather than saying, why should I do this or that, it should be, I should do this and that. Not all. So in the time of Taraweeh, it is Taraweeh. The time to break fast is the time to break fast. The time for Tilawatul Quran is the time for Tilawatul Quran. We have a long day, we can plan all that accordingly. We spoke a couple of days back about having a timetable, about having a tartib, about having a structure to our lives, sitting down and working out, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, how am I going to put this in? I need to work as well, and scheduling that accordingly. But we shouldn't be dismissive. As we're moving more and more towards reasoning things out, and everything has to make sense. There's some things which are beyond our sensibilities. There's some things which are beyond our understanding. For that reason, we're supposed to have faith. We're supposed to believe. We're supposed to trust. Again, giving that doctor analogy. If you trust your doctor, sometimes the doctor cannot explain to you what something is having an impact on in what way. You just have to accept and trust him and go with him, the advice that he's giving. In the same way, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is instructing us to do these different acts of worship, like again, we could have just prayed salah, but then there's fasting, so we have another act of worship. Then there's zakah, which is another act of worship. Then there's hajj, which is another act of worship. So we shouldn't say, well, what's the point of doing that? If I'm going for hajj, I'm traveling all that distance, that's like what, 7,000, 8,000, whatever, unless you've got a Pakistani passport. Traveling all that distance, couldn't that money be better used by helping a person who can't eat? So when I start rationalizing, instead of spending £10,000 or whatever it is to go for Hajj, which is only for me, which is a bit selfish, why don't I use that £10,000 and feed people who don't have any food whatsoever? Because we're now reasoning in things where there's no reason for us to reason. These are matters in which they've been decreed, and these are matters which have been made compulsory, and it is for us to, once we say amantu billahi, once we brought iman, is to now act accordingly. Otherwise this then becomes a question of our iman, that we're now questioning and we're going back. Because once you establish a logical person, an intelligent person, once they establish a fact, they don't go back to that fact again, they move on. So once you've established that Allah is the creator, Allah is the God, Allah knows everything, what He knows far excels what we know. Once that has been established, then we move forward. We don't go back again and say, oh, well, why am I doing Hajj for? What's the point in spending all that money? Why am I doing this for? What's the purpose of this? Instead of praying my Sunnah Muakkada, why don't I do my qazas? So not only have we done something wrong in the first place, where we didn't pray our fard, now we're making excuses in order to now also remove the Sunnah Muakkada. Well, weren't you wrong in the first place to not pray your fard? So if you were wrong there, what makes you think you're right now? If you were wrong there, what makes you think you're right now? The reasoning aspects are only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us to engage with the text and reason over things to make us understand, like we spoke yesterday about Uzair alayhi salatu wasalam, to demonstrate life after death. When we looked at Ibrahim alayhi salam, again to demonstrate life, that's when we apply the reasoning, but then the reason is supposed to filter down to the heart, to bring iman, which is then supposed to filter out to the body, to bring action. If it just stays here, it just becomes a thing of debate. It just becomes a thing of discussion. It just becomes a thing to inflate the ego. Many of the ulama will tell us Now, why is it we don't see so much discussion amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhu about all these so minutiae of the Sharia that we now sit for hours and discuss and debate? You know, why isn't it that there's 10, 20 hadith on every single ayat of the Quran? There isn't. There isn't 20, 30, 40 hadith on every single ayat of the Quran. Why didn't the Sahaba ask all these questions? Because they were quick to bring iman and quick to bring practice. We are quick to just debate. We are quick to just debate. We just want to discuss and debate and pass the time of day, pass the time of the day. That's why we're still sat around whilst they were conquering the world. Because they brought immediately, as soon as they understood something, it came straight into their heart and it brought them iman, increased them iman, which then consequently followed with action and moving forward and taking and progressing. When we look back at ourselves last year, we may have had less ilm. Alhamdulillah, hopefully over the year, we've increased our ilm a little bit. We've understood a little bit more about our deen. We've understood more about the commandments that Allah has placed upon us. We've understood a little bit more. But then, where has that gone? Has that increased us in iman? Is our iman stronger than it was last year? Are we more up for it? Has it then filtered through and become actions? Are we doing more now than we did last year? Because what ilm leads to is progression. So as you're doing, let's just say someone's doing a course of study, a 3-year degree or something, then understanding year one, when the person comes in year one, he hardly knows, he knows a very rudimentary basic understanding of that particular topic. He does 1 year, by the end of that 1 year, he now understands that first year's piece of study. And that helps him now go into year 2, and then eventually into year 3. We've been, alhamdulillah, Muslims for decades. Decades. Has each year improved our understanding of the deen? Has each year improved in understanding what happened to the pious predecessors? Do we understand and appreciate the ahkam more? Or are we more in doubt? Are those things, you know, when we were growing up, life was really simple. Everything was black and white. Now everything is questioned. You start to think that, you know, wait a minute, is this right as well? Is this wrong? Everything has now become obscure. Everything has become doubtful. Okay? Everything has been blurred. When it was so simple, everything was so clear. Everybody knew what Islam was. And now there's so much obscurities and misunderstandings and all this, and we start to argue that there's so many opinions. We're all speaking as though we're scholars. It is for the scholars to explore the ahkam. It's for the scholars to look at the opinions. It's not for every person to be doing that. It's not for every person to be doing that. This is dangerous. This could easily destroy that person's own understanding of their faith and take them out of the fold of Islam. That's how dangerous this is. We know, for example, the companions, whenever they used to say, Qala Rasulullah, and mentions a hadith, I think is Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, when he says Qala Rasulullah, he used to faint. He mentioned this narration. And he would come round and he would faint. They would be very careful. You notice that there's hardly any narrations from Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Yes, Sayyidina Abu Bakr was always with the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because he refrained from saying Qala Rasulullah in case he said something wrong. That was the fear they had. That was the anxiety with which that I'm sharing this. And it was only, and we see other narrations as well, where a companion is told something and he refrains from sharing it. Only on his deathbed he shares it. And the reason why he shares it on his deathbed, so he's not accused of kitmanul ilm, for concealing something that is to do with the faith that the ummah needed to know. And only on his deathbed he says it. So this ilm has a purpose. As I said, it's now become an after dinner debate. Yani we have a big dawat, we eat the food, we have chai shai, we have dessert. Now let's debate. Yani if you want to have a discussion about everything and anything but Islam. That is not something to debate and discuss and argue about. That is to ask a learned person. Once you ask the learned person, he gives you an answer. If he wishes to give you a little bit more details, or if you ask for more details and he shares them with you, good for you. If he doesn't, you've been told what to do. Go do it. That's it. Where's the confusion to come now? Well, I don't agree with him. I'm going to go ask somebody else. Or I don't agree with him. Who are you to agree or disagree? What do you even know to agree or disagree? You'll ask the brother, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. What does that mean? I remember a story of an ustad. It was a little bit of a cheeky story, but I'll share it with you anyway. So he goes, this brother comes up and he says, Sheikh, I've gone through the Quran. I can't find where it says music is haram. Where does it say music is haram? So he says it's in the Quran. So he says, where? He says, it's in the Quran. No, tell me where it is. So he's bugging him. So he says, Yara, alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. So he goes, oh, okay, no problem, Sheikh. After a bit, he comes back and says, Sheikh, what does that mean? So he goes, what do you mean, what does it mean? He says, what does that mean, what you said to me? So he goes, let me get this right. You asked me a question. When you asked me the question, I gave you an answer. You then wanted me to explain the answer to you because you can't understand Arabic. So then I told you what it means, and now you're still questioning it. So whenever the brother is trying to seek his ilm, he's going for English translations of this, English translation of Sahih Bukhari, English translation of Sahih Muslim, and now he's a scholar. He's going for English translation of the Quran, now he's a scholar. He doesn't know his gardan. We all know how you have to learn our gardan. We would be saying that in our sleep. Hours we would spend rocking, having to learn that. And now the brother just wants to get a translation of Sahih Bukhari, puts it out in front of him. This hadith here, this hadith there, what is this? Why has this deen become a mockery for everybody to put their fingers into it and tell us on how to interpret it? When it's preserved for those people who have ilm, when it's preserved for those people who have dedicated their lives for this service, when they've given their lives for it, all their lives, whether they've spent half their lives learning it, then the other half their lives they are spending sharing it. Sharing it. Now you want to be included in this elite group, and I don't say that with pride. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this. The Prophet says this is an elite group. The ulama, elite group. If you want to be part of this group, you make dua for it, you strive. It is Allah's ilm, He can give it to whoever He wishes. It is not ours. We are just as the hadith mentions, inheritors. It's not ours, we didn't earn it. We just inherited it. And we won't keep it. When we die, somebody else will take it. So if you want to be in that chain, if you want to be included in that group of people, then instead of striving for the next big car, instead of striving for the next big house, instead of striving for the next big holiday, then you do what the ulama did. You do what they did. That they lived hard lives, staying awake long hours. You do what they did. And fine, a person can get that. And they can get it at any stage. Some of us might say, oh, well, my beard is too white. I'm too old now. Now, how can I do it? Who says age was ever an issue? At what age was Sayyidina Abu Bakr when the Quran was being revealed? In his 40s. At what age was Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab when the Quran was being revealed? In his 40s. At what age was the Prophet ﷺ building Masjid Nabwi? In his 50s. At what age was the Sahaba swinging swords? In their 50s. We just about swing a duvet. If it's more than 1.5 tog, it's a bit difficult. We manage the 1.0 tog. And yet then we want to say, and we say, this hadith says this Quranic ayah says this says this. What kind of level of stupidity have we fallen into? What level of ignorance are we in that we've made the deen a talking point? The deen is not a talking point. The deen is a talking point for the ulama. They will sit amongst themselves. They will debate masail. That's their job. They will give us opinions and they will tell us to act on certain things. Our job is to find a scholar, to find somebody who's alive that we can connect with, that we find a good connection with. Not that if he gives us the answers we want to hear. Is this halal? No. Is this halal? No. Is this halal? Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. What's your name again? Share my number. Is this halal? No. Is this halal? No. Is this halal? Wa alaikum salam. What are you following? You following the deen or you are following shahwat? Now, if your person chooses to follow shahwat, that's that person's decision. But he should be in no doubt that he's not following deen. He should be in no doubt. That's where he has to be clear. And once we find that particular person, we take our masail from that particular person. Whether we agree with them or disagree with them, that's not for us to decide. Our job is to act upon them. That's it. And now we act. He is just a conduit for us to reach the akhirah. He has spent time not only in educating his mind, but he's also spent time in educating his soul. He has spent time with suhbah, with ulama. He has been in the company of ulama, discussing verses of the Quran in detail, discussing ahadith in detail, where the ulama have been looking at his behavior and characteristics and picking faults out of him. You shouldn't do this, you should do that, you shouldn't. This nigrani, this level of supervision that this person has gone through. Now we accept. Ulama are human. Ulama are human. My father tells me that even my great-grandfather would say that do as we say, don't do as we do. Do as we say, don't do as we do, because we are weak and we will make mistakes. And that's not for you to say, oh, well, he makes mistakes, so I'm going to make them as well. What kind of a ridiculous statement is that? Oh, he failed his driving test, so I'm going to fail it as well. Or he failed his theory test, so I'm going to fail it as well. He's gone bankrupt, so I'm going to go bankrupt as well. His business is going down south, so I'm going to go south as well. Do we say that? On every dunyavi sense, we say quite the opposite. Oh, better watch out, better not do what he did because he's gone bankrupt. Oh, I better not do what he's done. You know, we avoid that, but when it comes to deen, oh, well, he's committing sin, so we'll do it as well. Think about what we're doing. Reflect over what we're doing. So the alim, all he's doing is sharing his ilm with you. He's not saying I'm better than you. He's not saying that, I do this as well. He might not. If someone says to him, when do we pray tahajjud salah? He might say, you pray tahajjud salah at this time. Does that mean he's praying tahajjud salah? He might not. What's that got to do with you? What's that got to do with you? Are you his ustad or is he your ustad? Are you his God that you're asking him? Allah will ask him. That's his problem. He will deal with Allah on Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's not your job. You will not become his teacher. He's your teacher. You can't even do gardan backwards. Maybe even not forwards. So until you get into his league, until you get into his position, until you understand what he understands, then the famous saying is, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Again, if you want to be in that lane, if you want to be amongst the elite, if you want to be those people who spend all their day doing fikr of the ummah, spending time over the Quran, spending time, 100%, anybody can do that. Whatever their age, whatever their capabilities, anyone can do that. Even if a person makes a niyyah and he tries and he forgets, and he tries and he forgets, and he tries and he forgets, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will resurrect him with the ulama. Because his niyyah is like that. He wants to spend time with the ulama. He wants to learn. He's trying his best. Like a person who's reciting, we'll do qiyas upon that. Like a person who recites the Quran, one person recites fluently. He gets the ajr. The other person who's struggling, he's getting more. Why? Because he's putting more mujahada in. Because he's struggling, he cannot recite. The other person is learning his qira'ah like this and he's flowing through like water. And he's really struggling, he's jarring and he cannot get his makhraj right and he's struggling. He's going to get the reward. Does that mean he will be excused from that? Of course not, he will be included. So if you cannot become the scholar, like we used to see, the Prophet ﷺ's time and the companions who came after, if a person could not become a mujahid, then he would say support a mujahid. And you cannot go for whatever reason, support him. Pay for his horse, pay for his weaponry, whatever. So you cannot become a scholar, support the ulama. Use what skills you have. Use your skills to support the ulama. Do not be the fool who degrades and tries to humiliate the ulama when the ulama are that closely regarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, what you think is a source of success is potentially your own destruction. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give tawfiq and true understanding of what I said. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.